What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So I'm sure some of you are getting tired of hearing about the PlayStation 5 Pro, so I have some good news today. We're going to be talking about the PlayStation 6, and no, I'm not joking. There's actually a new report that was put out yesterday giving us some insight into some of Sony's plans, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we're going to be following that up with some Switch 2 information that appears to be leaking out online, specifically the name for it, and a few other details coming from, well, a source we've actually seen before, and it was correct then. We're also going to be talking about the new Battlefield game. It's looking like EA is going back to the drawing board for it, and so far, I at least like what I'm hearing. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps it a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members to the channel do get Newswave early. If you'd like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're gonna start today with Bungie, who has not had a great run recently. It seems like just a lot of struggles internally, and Sony even stepping in to try to figure things out. But now the big focus outside of Destiny 2 is on Marathon. Well, we have some information maybe around the pricing for it. We can see this posted up. This is over on the Game Post, who says Bungie's Marathon appears to be targeting a $40 launch price. That's according to multiple sources here with the Game Post. And people, some people seem kind of surprised by this. I figure that would make sense for it, of course, to follow along with what we've seen with things like Helldivers 2 and Concord, which Concord didn't work, Helldivers 2 did. The thing that's interesting about Marathon is it's sort of in this sector that it could work. I mean, Escape from Tarkov, I believe, is like the comparable right now that people are making, and that starts at $50. I say starts because it technically goes up into the hundreds of dollars for its game, although I guess there's a bunch of stuff that comes with it and early access. I don't know. It's a whole world out there with Escape from Tarkov. But I do think Marathon at least has a shot at this. We just got to see how it turns out. But I don't think the $40 price will actually be that much of a deterrent in this case. Also, we have an update for Astrobot when it comes to sales, specifically in the US, as we've mostly gone off of some vague discussions around the UK sales and, well, some numbers we've seen out of Japan with physical copies. This we can see posted over on Blue Sky. Interesting. Okay, this is from Matt Piscatella. Says, don't usually talk weeklies, but wanted to add some context. The UK reporting from last week across both physical and digital. Astrobot ranks second in unit sales in the US for whatever weekend, September 7th, behind only NBA 2K25 and the Astrobot DualSense with the week's best-selling accessory. Solid week one. So that's what I've been saying. We do have to wait to see what the US Circana report is for Astrobot, as that does appear to be the big focus right now for Sony is out in the West, not necessarily in Japan. The US is the big market for Sony now, and that's where they're selling the majority of their PlayStation 5s, and where I assume software like Astrobot would probably do the best, although just across Europe they'd probably do well also. But the worldwide sales are going to be the most important part for Astro, especially on the digital side, as we see Sony's core audience continues to move more and more towards just buying stuff off the PlayStation Store as opposed to retail shelves. So we'll at least get an idea with Circana report, but maybe Sony will be willing to say something about sales before then. Something tells me that won't be the case, and we'll find out next month with that report. Oh, and we did have a video that was released with a bit of a deep dive into Starfield Shattered Space, that being the expansion that's coming out later on this month, September 30th. You can see some of that video here. And, you know, I gotta say, this actually sounds really good. Here's the thing with Starfield, of course, being very open-ended. There's a lot of possibilities they had to account for here. Whereas what they're doing with Shattered Space, it's gonna all this is going to take place on one planet, and you don't necessarily leave the planet at all for the story. And so that means they're gonna be able to, I would say, handcraft things a bit better here, and it will be an entire story you'll go through. So it actually has vibes at times being almost more horror in terms of the setting and some of the things that are happening. So I like what I'm seeing here with Shattered Space, and it's out in a couple of weeks now. I did enjoy Starfield for what it was, and I wouldn't mind going back with something like this to experience, again, something a bit more handcrafted, closed off for Bethesda maybe to tackle. So this will be interesting. We'll see how this one turns out in a couple of weeks, but check out the deep dive if you're interested. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Nintendo Switch 2. At least that's what we've been calling it for a while, because makes sense. It's probably the obvious step up. You go from the Switch, you don't want to lose the branding for it. You just put a 2 on the end and you call it a day. You'd probably make up a new logo and stuff, sure, but that makes sense. And the thing with Nintendo is they don't always make sense, especially with their naming. I mean, we saw the Wii U, and so on there. So in this case, it does appear they're going to stick with the kind of the safe path here. Now, this is all coming way of a forum, a Chinese forum, and Famaboards members actually managed to find different posts, translate them over, and this is what we have from Reddit. So yes, we went from a Chinese forum to Famaboards to Reddit. It's a whole thing, but we can see the pertinent information here, where they say this is brand new info from a Chinese forum poster who didn't have an insider track record. Therefore, the following is strictly for fun and giggles. All right, Switch 2 production has started in somewhere in China, 1,000 units per day. This is from one worker, not the whole line. So one worker is, 1,000. They even mention, which we'll get into that in a second, about 2,000 units they might be going through per day. Slightly larger than the Switch 1, smaller bezel, black and white Joy-Con, slightly larger logo with two on the side. So basically flip it over on the back, you have a Switch logo with a big 2 next to it. And I can kind of envision that where remove even the Nintendo Switch from the bottom, those words, you just have that Switch logo, and then it just has the 2 that kind of matches up to it as well. And I think that's kind of what they're referencing here and how it would look on the back. And I think that would actually look pretty good in marketing. You'd probably still be able to keep like the Switch click, and maybe the 2 just smashes into the side of the logo for the animation, because it's also mentioned that the Joy-Cons on either side don't slide into place, they click into place with some sort of joint that would be developed and manufactured here to also line up seemingly with magnets, I guess, that would provide like a really secure and nice click in when you attach them. Now the story gets a bit more interesting as I was digging, trying to find the forum that was being referred to here in China, and the one that I believe it's coming from as I went through is the Taiba Baidu. I probably messed that up badly. Anyway, as I was going through the forum, I noticed that the initial post that was being referred to by Fanboard members and subsequently Reddit, those posts are gone. And it turns out the person who made those posts even uploaded like images of their ID badge for the factory they were working at, which is a terrible idea. That was deleted, then the posts were deleted, and it seems like most discussion around those posts are also being deleted. So yeah, a lot of questions around, was that legit or not, because of what's happening after the fact, but these things being seemingly wiped off the forum. You would figure first, like the first thought would be, yeah, obviously it was legit, and that's why they're getting completely wiped off of that forum. But also there could have been some things they figured out as more and more questioning happened, and they're like, okay, you're just kind of trolling at this point on the forum, and that's of course going to spread from here to other forums, and then Reddit, and then Twitter, and then YouTube. So there you go. It's the thing with this though is we've seen legitimate leaks come out of the factory basically since the first few days of the Switch. Even before that, technically, where there were people putting out information around the exact weight of the Joy-Cons, and then other information when it came to some of the internals. Remember, we had the Switch Lite, the backing, that image leaked out, and that was absolutely correct. We've had the PS5 itself with the shells leak out online, and basically when these things go into manufacture and production, yeah, there's a good chance that something will get out there, an image of it, a description, maybe like this. But the big thing is, if it is now in manufacturing like this, that actually means that Nintendo might be preparing some kind of announcement soon, and that's what people believe to be the case, where some are even calling for an announcement this week, although it's Tuesday now, so you got a day or two to make the announcement. Here's the thing though, I will say with Nintendo, when they first made the original Switch known, like the last day, it was called the NX, they announced that trailer would be happening the following day. They announced that 8:30 p.m. at night, Eastern time. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that one night this week they go, hey, tune in tomorrow, you're going to see a trailer to give you an idea of the future of Nintendo and their next generation device. Or we just don't see it until maybe next month or something. But if manufacturing is going on now, we'll just look at it that way here with this post. I mean, first half of 2025 is most likely, and they would want to get things moving along here soon. So I'm not calling for it to be revealed this week, but I'm open to the possibility, and I'll at least keep an eye out here. But interesting stuff, at least coming from this forum, or this Chinese forum, and some of the information, especially around the Joy-Con with the way it'd click in, and even that logo. Go figure. Switch 2. Who'd have thought? Next up, let's talk about the PlayStation 6, which I ran a poll asking people when they think that next generation will finally kick off for Sony. I say finally, but it doesn't necessarily feel like this generation has really gotten moving for a lot of people, especially based on many of the comments I see online whenever the idea of a PS5 Pro even is brought up, as we have that coming up here in less than 2 months. Well, it appears Sony, as we figure, has been working on the PlayStation 6 for quite some time, and it is a lengthy process to develop a system that is going to last, theoretically, 7 to 8 years, as we're seeing with we assume, the PlayStation 5 now. So it takes a while. In fact, it goes back apparently to 2022, where Sony was looking around to see who would want to manufacture the chip that would go in their next generation system. And Reuters has the report on how Intel missed out on this one. They say, Intel lost out on a contract to design and fabricate Sony's PlayStation 6 chip in 2022, which dealt a significant blow to its effort to build its fledgling contract manufacturing business, according to 3 sources with knowledge of the events. Moving from AMD, which made the PlayStation 5 chip, to Intel would have risked backwards compatibility, which was a subject of discussion between Intel and Sony engineers and executives, the sources said. Rival AMD, of course, landed the contract, which again makes sense. As we see here, Sony is very concerned around backwards compatibility, and they should be. And people were like, oh, PS3? Backwards? No, that's probably for PS4 and PS5, as that is what AMD's been working on with Sony. So to keep that going, yeah, you would go with AMD so they can help engineer backwards compatibility so it works well enough, we'll say, for the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5. Although, PS3 I don't think is out of the realm of possibility, and I still think we're a good 4 years off of the PlayStation 6. I feel like there has to be an effort within Sony to figure out a PlayStation 3 emulator that can run on their next generation device with what we assume to be a better processor, along with a step up on the GPU side, because the way that the PS3 emulation works now is it's not emulated. It's actually still running on PS3 hardware within like server data centers and stuff, so that gets streamed to your PlayStation. Eventually, that hardware will die, and they're not going to be making it forever, so you want to figure that out at some point, Sony. But I just don't think Intel was ever a serious consideration by Sony. They probably were leveraging them, and apparently Broadcom, probably when it comes to negotiations with AMD, as, hey, look, we have an out if you guys get ridiculous with this pricing, because you're looking at this knowing that, yes, you're going to go with us because of backwards compatibility, and that lineup from the PS4 and the PS5 working on the PlayStation 6. But technically, Sony didn't say anything about the PS6. This is Reuters getting the report on Intel that then tells us about the PlayStation 6 and how Intel missed out on what would have been a massive contract, as we assume. Sony selling 100 million PS5s. We'll continue that forward, say maybe they'll sell 100 million PlayStation 6 systems. You see why Reuters will report on that, as that is some serious information for, say, investors when it comes to Intel, who has not really been having a good go of things recently. It's been kind of tough for them as well, especially when it comes to the valuation of the company and the stock market. But there you go. PlayStation 6, probably sticking with AMD, go figure. Next up, let's talk about what appears to be Nintendo's holiday bundle, at least for like their Black Friday bundle, I guess. And I'm about to say go figure one more time because, well, it's Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Go figure. We can see this over on their official account with the announcement, where they say the Nintendo Switch OLED model Mario Kart 8 Deluxe bundle and the Nintendo Switch Mario Kart 8 Deluxe bundle available early this fall. Both bundles include a digital code for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe game and a 12-month Nintendo Switch Online individual membership. I guess in this case, they're at least doing one with the OLED in mind, whereas usually it's just the red box Switch and like that's it. And it's really been just a Switch and the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe bundle since the Switch came out. Like, well, okay, so technically after that, but like it's been there every holiday season. They have bundled this thing with it, and I mean, I guess it works for them. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, or Mario Kart in general, is incredibly popular for Nintendo, and it goes alongside of what they're doing here with the 12-month Nintendo Switch Online individual membership, which they do also mention that it auto-renews unless canceled, so there you go. I guess they had to put that fine print in a reply here on Twitter X, but yeah, it's pretty straightforward stuff. I guess that's just kind of how it is here for this entire generation. If nothing else, we'll remember it for that holiday bundle with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. That's the nice thing about going to the Switch 2. Hopefully we can leave this bundle behind, although Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is probably going to be backwards compatible, right? That's what we assume, the way it's looking. So maybe they can continue this trend forward. If they don't have a new Mario Kart to announce for this system year one, why not have a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Nintendo Switch 2 bundle set up for holiday 2025. Let's keep that trend going. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Battlefield, which actually about 3 years, it's hard to believe it's been 3 years just about since Battlefield 2042 came out, and it didn't go over well. I mean, we had a game release in the Battlefield franchise that launched without a scoreboard, and rolling up to its release, it actually looked kind of cool with some of the real-time weather events that can happen, that can completely change the face of the match that's going on with 128 different players. But it just didn't work when it first came out, and it was lacking all this content, and you had specialists rather than classes. It wasn't great, especially for some of the more seasoned Battlefield players that remember the old days of maybe Bad Company 2, or even that time period of Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. Well, if you are one of those players, I have good news, because it seems like that's the direction that Battlefield is now retreating to. We can see this is posted up over on IGN. It's an entire interview with IGN and Vince Zampella, who is going to be working here with the new Battlefield game, and I think there's some information here many of you will be happy to hear about. Again, seasoned Battlefield players. To start, they are returning to the modern setting. They're not trying to go back in time. They're not trying to go well, now, at this point, 20 years into the future? Nothing like that. It's going to be modern combat right now. 64-player combat. So they're cutting it in half. They're not doing the 128 players, which technically they did here. Look, Battlefield 2042 has undergone a bunch of changes. It's better now than it was at launch, but these are all things that took, I mean, years, really, if you think about it, for them to figure this stuff out. So 64-player combat right from the start. Specialists are out. The class system is back in. So great news there. And they want it to be good out of the gate. None of this, again, hey, we're going to spend years basically in what is early access. We're just selling it to you for full price and figure it out with community feedback. No, we're going to actually have this set up ready to go out of the gate, full experience, and hopefully what we're looking for here. And of course, he's asked about Switch 2 and PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, he seems pretty happy with the PS5 Pro, and of course, easier to talk about that being announced as opposed to the Switch 2, which is not announced as of this recording. So in that case, he's like, yeah, we like Nintendo and we like Sony. They're great partners for us. So is Microsoft. I like the Switch. Would be really cool to have this on the next system. Who knows? And I mean, look, EA obviously knows about the next Nintendo system. Most likely they are working with dev kits on it and probably preparing some of their software to either launch alongside of it or have something or a few things ready to go in the first year of that platform. But they're not just going to come out and talk about it, obviously, here in an interview randomly for Battlefield with IGN. Nonetheless, though, I'll be keeping an eye on this one because we had concept art and everything, and it even looks like just the basic color scheme and the tone. I know it's concept art, it's one image. It does look a bit more appealing than what we had with Battlefield 2042. So I'm interested, although I was also interested in Battlefield 2042, and that didn't really go according to plan. But in this case, we have Vince Zampella back there, and here's hoping he can actually figure it out and have a bit of a return to form for the franchise. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, when do you anticipate next generation for Sony's PlayStation 6 to start? Okay, 2028, that is the majority vote here. It makes sense. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Wow, maybe 2027, Sony will get out ahead of things there. But 2030 is the third most voted, and you know what? I've thought about this. I've gone back and forth. Would Sony wait until 2030? Would they try to make this a 10-year cycle before the PlayStation 6 comes out? Because there are many people now who are already like, dude, I don't really see much of a difference visually with the PlayStation 5. I'm good with my PS5. I feel like the PS6 has to be something other than we're going to make 4K more 4K. Like anything, whether it's the immersion factor with the controller, audio, something with AI getting integrated, just a way to present games differently in terms of the gameplay and the experience as opposed to what we have now. That might take some time, to figure out. So the way people look at the generation now, where it's been stalling the first few years at this time, maybe Sony goes, you know what, you're right. We're gonna hold on to this for a bit. We're gonna ride the PS5 as far as we can. And I mean, if they have big first party titles showing up to close out the generation, it does go into 2030, but the games are good. maybe people won't mind to wait that long for the PlayStation 6. We'll see. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Porto. It says, you might want to lay low with this port, says the man showcasing it to his 700,000 subscribers. I saw this actually come up quite a bit in the comment section. At this point, I will tell you, for this project in particular, the people behind it who are creating it, they made the choice to be very, very open and public with this. So, for example, we have this here that was posted up over on Twitter X from Falco again, saying, actual hardware capture showing some of the latest progress on our impossible GTA 3 port to the Sega Dreamcast. 850,000 views. Abe Verme, when they went ahead and quote tweeted it just a few days ago, yeah, 750,000 views. I wonder if Rockstar is paying attention to Abe Verme. Maybe. The point is, at this time, now would be, okay, we've made a lot of noise about this thing. Probably good to go lay low now. Guys, it's already out there. It's in the open. Wouldn't matter if I covered it or not necessarily for Rockstar to take notice. I just thought it was a cool project that has been making the rounds, and it's not hidden away somewhere on some forum buried in a thread that no one's noticing. Oh yeah. People know about this one, trust me. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it here for you in a card next to me. Or maybe you wanted to hear about Apple Arcade, which is a service that actually has some pretty interesting games on there, but no one's really tried. I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.